Well, hey, can you guys hear me? Hello? Now there it is. You don't really need to give me a microphone, but hey, I just want to thank everybody in here for joining us. This is something, hey, y'all sit down back there. Hey, yeah, there you go. Anyway, I just want to thank everybody for coming in here. I know you didn't come to hear me talk, but you give me a microphone, it's going to happen.
I hear you.
Right? And so I just want to thank a couple of you guys. I know folks came from everywhere. Amanda came from Louisiana. I think folks from Idaho to come down to see this. And you know what? The only way we do things like this is Patriot Mobile. We are here putting God first in everything we do and putting Him first. We are His stewards, and we try to save this country. Right? That's really what it boils down to. Everybody here knows that. So you don't come here to hear me. I just want to bring in a guy that I've got to know over the last year. He's known about Patriot Mobile for 6 or 8 years, maybe longer. So, you know what? And we ran into each other in January, I believe. And I said, hey, do you know Patriot Mobile? He goes, well, heck yeah. My roommate in college was one of your first investors. Is that right?
Housemate, yeah.
Housemate. Yeah. All right. So, you know, we started talking, and once I heard who he truly is the guy you see talking. There is one God. We've got to have oil. We've got to have, those are the things. And this is the country. When you get to know his heart, you're like, okay, I want to do everything to help promote what he's doing. And he sent me a text the other day, and he said, hey, have you seen this? I was like, okay, I want to bring it into South Lake because I know that there's enough conservatives here to win the country. So without any further ado, I want to introduce Vivek Ramaswamy. And before I bring him up, Mo, will you stand up, please? You are you're the producer, executive producer, and
director right here.
All right, anyway, I'll phone you.
This is, you guys do everything big in Texas. Big state, big theater here. We got to get some theaters this size in Ohio. That's where I'm from. The largest red county in the country. Is that where we are right now? I appreciate that. Thank you for everything you're doing, my man. And I appreciated the event with the sheriff beforehand. I'll tell you, we're obviously 49 days from what I certainly believe is the single most consequential election of our lifetime. But actually today we're, for a couple short hours, actually just going to take a step back and a break from partisan politics to address an issue that is a consequence of the failed southern border policies, but it exposes a different dimension of it that I hope we actually can solve in this country without politicizing it. I'm not sure that's going to be possible, but I hope it is. And the person who actually is the director of the movie, Mo, Glenn just briefly introduced, you're going to hear from him afterwards. His story is part of what drew me to this as well. His father was in forced labor conditions back in India, but now he's an immigrant to the United States and is exposing what we never would imagine exists in the United States. What this movie is about is really about a theme that you might imagine existing somewhere in the third world, in another hemisphere, in another century. We tell ourselves that slavery ceased to exist in the United States in the 1860s. Well, not exactly. This movie exposes an underbelly that I have to admit, I didn't know about the extent of it at the time I embarked on my presidential campaign last year, and that is the issue of child trafficking across our southern border. There was a movie made called The Sound of Freedom. Some of you may be familiar with it. Thank you. Oh, good. I'm glad. So a number of the executive producers, I actually was not involved in that movie, but a number of people who were got together to highlight a different dimension of this crisis relating to forced child labor. That was more focused on sex trafficking. This is more focused on forced child labor. But if we can't agree on the importance of addressing child trafficking in this country, I think that we're done as a country. I do hope that we still have that common thread. And one of the things that touched me about this film is actually the story of a young man. It's inspired by a true story. The young man who plays him is actually here with us as well, so you'll hear from him after the movie. He's the star of this movie. And when I watched it for the first time, it reminded me of my two sons as well. I'm a father of two sons. And I think that this is not somebody else's problem. It's our own problem. One of the things I did during the campaign was I met with parents of children who had been impacted by the fentanyl crisis in the country. And you're in a presidential campaign. I remember you fall into this trap. Everyone does. I do too. Just you have your lines. You know, you're in an event. You go to your YouTube go-to lines. You give a speech. And I did that at one of these events. It was a fentanyl roundtable. I had my statistics, the talking points I had used in the past. And I think there was a mother of a son who was there in that room where I think she felt like I hadn't really understood. She grabbed me after the event. She said, listen, I know you have two sons. I know your older one's 3 years old, and I want you to hear me loud and clear. If you don't get in there and fix this, the next step on the list is you. And she said that as a mother who had lost a son to that crisis. And that moment, it landed with me to think about the fact that these aren't statistics. There's 20 million people or 12 million people around the world living in slavery. Yes, it's bad. Yes, there's how many people have crossed the border illegally? Tens of millions, probably, in the last 4 years alone. Those are statistics. But part of the way we're going to reach people is also through the power of telling those stories one at a time. And so this isn't a movie about 12 million people. This is a movie about one young man's struggle. He was brought to the United States, trafficked across the border under false pretenses. And at least in his case, he pushed back. He did his job. And what I'm hopeful, and I think all of us who are involved in this movie are hopeful for, is that by seeing this problem firsthand, once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is the ugly underbelly of a border crisis where, yes, is it hurting people in towns like the one close to where I grew up in Springfield, Ohio? I'm actually going to be in Springfield, Ohio on Thursday night, having a town hall with that entire community. And you know one of the things we've done? We've actually extended an open invitation even to the Haitian migrants in that community, many of whom are not bad people. These are people who themselves are political pawns in a broader game. It's the failed policies that are hurting everybody involved. And I think that's one of the things that I'd love for you to take away from this movie tonight as well, is that it's not compassion when you allow someone across an open border at the scale we are. That's not compassion to many of the people who cross in this direction. It is cruelty to them too. And so I hope we're able to, at the same time we are in the middle of a war for the future of our country, and I believe we are, we also locate our compassion for why we're in that war. And I think this is one of the toughest things for me running for U.S. president last year to do. I think our country requires our leaders to do it nonetheless, which is to at once be strong enough to fight the evil we're up against. You can't be a wilting flower. My rule is if you hit me, I'm going to hit you back 10 times harder, and I'm not going to apologize for it. And we're going to defend this country the same way. You have to be strong enough, but also strong enough to protect your kindness. And I think we can't forget both sides of that. Can't be so kind as somebody hits you, you wilt like a flower. It doesn't work that way. But you also have to be strong enough to remember what we're actually protecting. And I hope that is one thing that watching this movie tonight does for us, is to remind us the compassion that we are fighting to defend. And I hope you take away as much from this movie as I did the first time around. I've watched it several times. Each time I've taken away something different from it. I hope it's a thriller that keeps you at the edge of your seats. Those are big, comfortable seats you have. But I hope it keeps you at the edge of your seats. But most importantly, my ask of you, I'll make in the beginning. You'll hear from Mo, the director, and the lead actor as well at the end of the movie. But my ask for you is, whatever you learn by watching this, don't keep it to yourself. Tell your neighbors, tell your colleagues, tell the parents of your kids' classmates. This is not somebody else's problem, it's our problem. And especially do this for me, okay? Both with respect to the themes of this movie and the border crisis, but more generally in this country. If I'm going to give you one assignment, let it be this. Make sure you talk to somebody who doesn't just agree with you. Make sure you reach and talk to somebody who doesn't, actually. That's how we're going to get our country back. And the America I miss is one where we can disagree like hell and actually still get together at the dinner table at the end of it. That's what made America great the first time around. And so as you watch this movie, when we take a step back from partisan politics, sometimes when we're in partisan politics, we don't have the opportunity to do that. But if you take a step back and just look at a film that's politically neutral, that gives us a chance that we otherwise don't have. Take the message that what you learn about the border crisis, what you learn about the child trafficking crisis in this country, use that as an opening to establish contact, actually make contact with somebody who otherwise might not have had an open heart or mind to why you believe what you do. Use that as an entry point to make sure that we still are one country at the end of this. And I know that's the country we're fighting for. You guys do your part. I promise you, I'm going to do mine. I promise you, Donald Trump's going to do his. And our best days as a country, as dark as it may be today, I believe that our best days as a country can still be ahead of us. So let's open our eyes tonight and open your hearts and enjoy the movie. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. All right, so we'll get the movie underway. Thank you.